The United Auto Workers expanded its strike this week, targeting some of the most profitable plants of Detroit's big three automakers. The latest one started yesterday at a GM SUV factory with about 5,000 workers in Arlington, Texas. Stephanie Sy has the latest on the strike, now in its 41st day.
Jeff, the strikes now involve 46,000 workers at 40 assembly plants and part centers around the country. There are reports today that Ford and the UAW could be moving closer to an agreement, but so far a deal with the big three automakers remains elusive. For a look at where things stand, we're joined by David Shepardson of Reuters, who has been covering all of this closely. David, thank you so much for joining us. First, I want to ask you what you know about any developments in the UAW's contract negotiations with Ford. Are you hearing about any breakthroughs?
Well, Ford has been the furthest along of the Detroit Three with the UAW. They've been intensely bargaining. They went late last night. And so there is a real possibility they could announce an agreement, a tentative agreement with Ford as early as tonight. Ford had previously said they were willing to go to a 23% pay hike over a little more than 4 years. The UAW has been pushing them to go up to at least 25%. So, I do think there's a very realistic chance we could see a deal as early as later tonight, or it could, this could be another false alarm. But they are definitely moving, to the closest point they've been in this nearly 6 weeks.
And how will that set the standard with the other two companies that they're negotiating with?
Yeah, I think, like in the past, traditionally the UAW has picked one company, reached an agreement with them, and the other two have not gone on strike. In this case, the UAW opted to do this targeted strike of all three at the same time, the first time ever. So I do think a deal with Ford is going to set the template for a deal with GM and Stellantis. They're pretty close already in terms of the proposals they had versus Ford. So it might take a few days or longer than that, but I think ultimately whatever deal with Ford is struck will set the benchmark for the other two.
Okay, so what continue to be the top priorities for Shawn Fain and union members? And are there some things that they have clearly been willing to concede on?
Sure. I mean, this started out where the UAW was seeking, a 40% pay raise over 4 years, a 32-hour work week, a return of defined benefit pensions. So, but on the other hand, the auto companies were offering, somewhere around 14 to 15% pay hikes, and we're seeking, some changes to work rules. So, by all accounts, this deal, the one that was already on the table prior to whatever final deal gets reached, will be the most, the most lucrative ever for the union. It's much better than what I think some analysts thought the union would get, but they're not getting some of the more transformative items like a 32-hour work week or a return of the defined benefit pension that they had saw and the union had given up about 15 years ago when the industry was in real trouble.
One of the things we've been looking at is how the union is concerned about the car makers' transition to electric vehicles and their job security related to that. And I know Fain wanted an agreement that unionizing workers would sort of happen automatically at any future electric battery plants stood up by the car makers. Where are they on that issue? I know that was a sticky, tricky part because it involved foreign companies as well.
Correct. So the Detroit automakers have these joint ventures with Korean battery companies to build the batteries, which ultimately, as the industry shifts toward electric vehicles, are going to replace the engines and the transmissions built for internal combustion vehicles. And so, at a minimum, we're not going to see a full agreement because most of these plants are not yet in place. I think, even if there is an agreement about including these workers under the master agreement, there's still a lot of decisions and negotiating to be had about what they're going to get paid, what kind of benefits, what are the rights of workers to transfer from traditional plants to there. And so that issue may not get resolved for quite a bit.
David Shepardson with Reuters, thanks so much for being with us and for your reporting on this issue.
Thank you.